not prepared!
Welcome to another Top 5 with Kris 05, guys. Today I'm gonna give you the 5 best performing Wild decks after the Deadmines nerfs. Don't forget, you can enter my $80 Big Bundle giveaway, and if you need more information for that, check out my last Top 5 best budget decks. Good luck and enjoy. I would really appreciate it if you drop a like and a subscribe, and click that bell notification so you don't miss out my future videos as well. Now, let's get into the decks. The first deck on the list has to be Pirate Warrior. Pirate Warrior is really strong in Standard, but is even stronger in Wild, and it is currently the best performing deck, and some of these lists actually have 70% win rate, which is pretty absurd even for Wild. This list is a little bit more aggressive than the usual lists out there, but it proves to be one of the best. Here more than half the deck consists of 1-mana pirates, and that way you can even complete the quest as soon as turn 4 and play it on turn 5. We are running a ton of cheap pirates, some better than others, but they all serve an excellent purpose to finish your quest nice and early. We're also running a couple of ship cannons so you can ping off some early game threats and get in some early game smorg damage as well. We have a single Ankar so you have something to draw on step 1, and you also obviously run Defias Cannoneer, because he's basically a better cannon because it has the pirate tag as well. South Sea Captain also is an excellent inclusion in here because you zerg the board with a ton of 1-drop and 2-drop pirates, and after that buff him up with South Sea. Mistress Might can be an excellent finisher, but you can also use it defensively to remove some important threats. With this deck, even if you draw patches, it's not gonna be the end of the world, because at least you're gonna be able to use them as a cheap pirate to finish off your step of the quest as well. In some cases you might even want to be playing Parachute Brigand before playing other pirates, just so you ensure that quest progression gets off. But in other cases you obviously just want to tether it out for a bunch of early game bodies out there. There's obviously not enough stats here for me to show you a good, reliable mulligan guide, but you basically want your good, cheap pirates. We're never gonna be keeping Patches or Ankar obviously, and Foxtail Freebooter is one of your worst keeps as well. Shiver There Timbers also doesn't make too much sense in most cases, and South Sea Captain is something you wanna draw into and not really keep early on. I would believe Harbor Scamp is a lot better than this, but I guess the philosophy here is 2 1-drops are better than a single 2-drop. We all know that your turn 1 is always gonna be a quest, and if you have the coin you might coin out a 1-drop as well. So technically the first pirate you will be dropping when you're going first would be a 2-drop, but again 2 1-drops just seem better. And your best 1-drops would be Bloodsail Deckhand, Nazat's First Mate, and also Sky Raider because it gives you extra random pirates. Small Time Buccaneer is cool and all, but he rarely gets to actually have the +3 attack and swing with it too. The deck is not too cheap, sitting at 4 legendaries, but all of those legendaries are pretty good if you're a fan of Wild anyway, so I would say craft away. Even though this is Wild we are speaking of, this deck might be in danger of a nerf because it is too good in Standard as well, but maybe the new set is gonna change that. Next deck on the list is Even Warlock. Even Warlock has been a strong deck in Wild for as long as I remember, and the situation isn't too different right now either. Here we abuse the 1-mana hero power as much as we can to fill up our hand, and that way we can drop early game Giants, Gold Gnolls, and an F around too. Molten Giants also drop pretty early if you manage to do as much damage as you can, and Pirate Wars definitely help you with that line. And as soon as you stick some big boys, on turn 6 you can just whip out the Battleground Battlemaster, and that is usually enough to get the win. You have a ton of removals as well, with Dark Bombs, Defiles, Drain Soul for some healing and removal, Unstable Shadow Blast, Soul Rend as well, and that's about it. You also have some healing from Spicy Bread Baker, some pirate control with Galaka Crawlers, and you can cheat out the size of your hand with Encumbered Pack Mules too. And that way you can drop Giants even earlier. And that way you can drop your hand size minions even earlier if you get lucky. You also have Raise That so you can get back those Giants, and that's about it for the deck. For the mulligan, Molten Giants and your Gnolls always make enough sense. For the mulligan, Mountain Giants and your Gold Gnolls always make enough sense. Defile can also help you against aggro-y decks, Soul Rend might also be pretty decent, and obviously if you're against the warrior, Galaka Crawler is always gonna be a decent keep too. It does say Battleground Battlemaster is your best keep, but that's not really that great for you to be keeping a card you're actually going to be playing on turn 6, so you much rather would top deck it. But then again, maybe you don't want to be risking burning it with Soul Rends. This is quite a cheap version of Even Warlock, and it's only running 2 legendaries. And the rest is 4 epics, 12 rares, and a bunch of commons, so it's not even that expensive for a tier 1 deck in Wild. I don't believe anything from this list is getting nerfed either, so I guess craft away. With Priest, we have Shadow Priest at the top. I have been abusing a similar list for quite a few seasons on Wild myself, and I can safely say this is one of the strongest decks I've piloted in Wild. It is very aggro-y, and it also runs the Pirate package so you can get a bunch of bodies nice and early, and also thin out your deck. And we're running a good amount of Smork tools as well, with Shadow Bomber, Void Touch Attendant, which increases damage from all sources, and against you as well, so be careful with that. Defias Leper, which is a cool new inclusion, a couple of Mind Blasts, which can actually become 4 Mind Blasts if you Shadow Vision them, Burgons again for early bodies, Ship Cannon for more Smork damage, Twilight so you can fish out some extra shadow spells, Wriggling Horror so you can buff out those cheated out minions, Frenzied Fellwing, which can drop as soon as turn 1, if you have the coin obviously, and obviously Benedictus. The deck is very strong, and when it clicks you can win as soon as turn 4. For the mulligan, you want a cheap pirate, and also Parachute Brigand in there, so you can tether that out as well. If you already have those, Wriggling Horror becomes an excellent keep, especially if you're going second. Ship's Cannon might also be an interesting keep if you think you can stick it. Twilight Deceptor can fish out extra spells for you as well. Shadow Bomber might be an excellent keep if you already have a Frenzied Fellwing as well. And Tour Guide might also be interesting if you have a Twilight Deceptor. What I'm trying to say is, the deck has a ton of micro synergies, so you have to have a good read of what the game is trying to give you. Cause a lot of the times the deck can have a pretty crazy start, but it's not always the same start. In some cases you cheat out a bunch of pirates, in other cases you cheat out Frenzied Fellwings, and in other cases you can go for a Ship Cannon as soon as turn 2 and coin out a pirate then. So it all comes down to what you're able to figure out with your deck. Again, only 2 legendaries in here, 6 epics and 4 rares, so it's not an expensive deck for you at all. As long as the new expansion doesn't bring too much craziness to Wild, this deck should remain strong even after that. Moving down, the Quest Hunter obviously. This is the odd variant with Baku, and it consists mainly of 1-drop damaging spells, so you can finish off that quest nice and early. A lot of the times you will be able to play the quest reward as soon as turn 5, and finish off your opponent on turn 6. Like I said, we have a ton of good 1-mana damaging spells with Arcane Shots, On the Hunt, Overwhelm, Rapid Fire, Wound Prey, and that's about it. You also have Tracking, which is excellent once the quest is complete, but don't be afraid to use it if you're having trouble completing the quest beforehand. Flare can help you deal with secrets as well as stealthed minions, which is not that rare on ladder right now. And also Hunter's Mark helps you deal with big boys. But again, it's a lot better for you to play this after the quest is finished. You have a couple of aim shots for extra Smork damage, and even Auction Master Beardo, which can actually be a second way of you to finish off your opponent without even having to play Tavish. Because basically what Beardo does is what Tavish will do if you play him for 5 mana. So as soon as you get your hero power down to 0 mana, Auction Master Beardo can actually be utilized for an even earlier game finish. But make sure you have enough fuel for this. Impatient Shopkeeper is decent for you to be using it for a tradable card, but also sometimes you just rush into something with it. Kill Commands could be excellent finishers as well, especially for 5 damage. Power Shot deals with those white pirate boards. And you also have a couple of Vipers, which you can use for weapons, but again, you probably want them for the tradable. For the mulligan, basically you want your good 1-drop damaging spells, with Rapid Fire at the top. I'm not sure Toxic Reinforcement is that high on the keep list, but Wound Prey and On the Hunt and Overwhelm and Arcane Shot definitely are. If I were you, I wouldn't be keeping anything other than those 1-mana damaging spells. Here we have 3 legendaries, 2 epics and 8 rares, so again, in Hearthstone standards, this seems to be a pretty affordable deck. And the last deck on this wild list is gonna be the Fire Elemental Mage. This is quite the broken mage deck, and it can cheat out wins in impossible situations too. Even if you think you're winning, they are running a couple of ice blocks, and that can postpone the game quite a lot, while they build up their win conditions. I'm not even sure if they already took action against those animation removing mages, but if you're fast enough, you should be able to finish off opponents with this deck, without relying on cheating. The idea here is you want to stick a Sanctum Chandler with a couple of Sorcerer's Apprentices, and that way you get to basically cycle through your entire deck for 0 mana. The only spells you're running here are fire spells, so as long as you don't top deck Molten Reflector, everything else will be playable for you for 0 mana. And that way you get to fish out your Ignites over and over again, until the opponent is not an opponent anymore. You are running Varden here, which serves basically as a Frost Nova, but you don't want to have Frost Nova in your deck because it's not a fire spell. Witchwood Piper reliably draws your Source Apprentices, Sandbinder reliably draws your Sanctum Chandlers, and the Rider reliably draws your Ice Blocks. which are not fire spells obviously, so be careful with that. You are running a bunch of tradable cards as well, so that way you're always gonna be able to fish out your important combo pieces. For the mulligan, I'm not even sure what you're keeping if I have to be completely honest. I haven't played this deck and I don't have plans to play it either. So yeah, here's what the stats look like, but they're not exactly very reliable. The deck only has one legendary with Varden, and to be honest, it's not even essential, so you can probably run this with 0 legendaries too. So it's one of the cheapest, best decks out there, at least for Wild. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I hope this top 5 helps you figure out what you wanna be climbing to legend with in Wild. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05 and I'll see you in my next video or stream.